King's Dominion has finally announced their volcano replacement. It's going to Canada's Wonderland. AlpenFury coming in 2025.
He didn't tell me he was going to say that. That just caught me off guard so bad. I love that. Before we even talk about the fact that this is in Canada's Wonderland, can we just address the King's Dominion thing? Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like this is kind of like a in the face to a lot of KD fans right now.
The thing is, after they removed the mountain from Volcano, like...
It was inevitable.
It was inevitable, and people have known about the wing coaster for a long time, and it still looks good, but it is kind of funny that in the same chain, in the same year,
I think that's
a roller coaster's launching out of the mountain.
I think it's literally because it's the same year.
Yeah.
If it was at 2 different times, it'd be different, but it's like the year that they do the volcano replacement and this at the same time is kind of like, oh.
Yeah, but this is a ride that has also been a long time coming for Canada's Wonderland. I mean, this fills some pretty big gaps in their lineup. They have a lot of roller coasters, but they don't have a high-thrill launch coaster. They don't have a roller coaster with like a ton of inversions that's good, because we're not counting Flight Deck. I think that this is just the non-stop, like action-packed roller coaster that they need, because right now their big 3 roller coasters are B&Ms, which are good, but Behemoth and Leviathan, even though they are, you know, different in classification, you get similar vibes. So it was important that they add a roller coaster that is high thrill, that just hits a different mark.
Yeah, so we didn't even say it because we got straight into the volcano thing. But this is a Premier Rides multi-launch coaster, and it is 3,280 feet of track. So it is a pretty big coaster.
Yeah, and the big thing with this ride is it goes upside down 9 times, which is the most in Canada and tied for the most in North America with Steel Curtain. So they did go for an inversion record. So it's 164 feet tall, drop of 154 feet, although to say it's a drop, I don't know if that's the right word that I would use, because
is that coming off of that inverted top hat?
It's an inverted top hat, so it's not a traditional drop, which again is good because they needed something that was different. They have 3 big roller coasters in the park that have huge drops.
And it's going to reach a max speed of 72 miles per hour or 115 kilometers per hour, as the Canadians would say.
Yeah, it's got 2 launches. So the first one is a boost, and then the second one is your main launch sequence, which is like underneath the mountain. So this is yet another roller coaster that is incorporated into Wonder Mountain, along with Vortex, Thunder Run, and Wonder Mountain's Guardian.
That's insane. So I'm going to go right off the bat and say I've never been to Canada's Wonderland. It's one of the few like major North American parks that I'm missing. So instead, I decided to rock the second best Canadian park in the Six Flags chain today, Laurent, because I don't have Canada's.
Oh yeah, their sister park. We can say that now.
Yes, they are. So I have not seen the mountain with my own eyes, but like to me, the concept of that many roller coasters sharing this central space is mind-blowing to me.
It is. It's a wildly impressive structure. It's like the big centerpiece of this park.
Yeah.
You can see it from just about anywhere. I mean, it's ginormous. Last couple points, it's going to run with 2 trains. That has 18 passengers per train. The formal duration is 1 minute 20 seconds, which is a pretty long ride sequence.
Especially for 1 minute and 20, like there's no lift hill or anything. It's straight into the action. So that is actually a pretty long ride, and maybe a bit too long. I don't know if it gets a little repetitive.
Yeah, this is, I feel like they got a little caught up in trying to get the inversion record that they probably could have done with 1 less roll, because if you're looking at this, most of the inversions have a very similar motion. It's just how can we just like vary it slightly. So you have several downward rolls, and you have like 1 roll that'll lead into another roll, and so I feel like even just 1 less probably would have been good. Like, it's still an excellent layout. Don't get me wrong.
But here's the thing. If they had done 1 less, we all would have been like, man, they should have done 1 more to get the record.
Well, that's why you just vary it. But I will give them credit where credit is due. The elements that they went with here are extremely unique and creative. Like, I don't feel like there's really anything basic about this ride at all. You know, there's no vertical loop. There's no cobra roll. There's not even an Immelman or a dive loop. Like, they just tried to, like, mix it up as much as they can. And I think that it is going to be very well received.
So speaking of the layout, do you have any specific, like, moments from this coaster that look interesting to you?
Yeah, I would say the turnaround is really cool because it reminds me of the treble clef on Fury, but instead it throws you into an inversion afterwards. You do the high bank and then it rolls you over.
That was the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I was like, that's the treble clef. I think I yelled to you from the other room. I was like, dude, they have a treble clef.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. That's going in the old Sky Coaster plot of land. That's what they use as their turnaround. So I think that's really creative. Yeah,
and I'm a sucker for the inverted top hat. I love the one on Mr. Freeze so much. I think it's so fun. So that I'm excited for a newer one of those. Again, as someone who's never been to the park, this has me even more excited than I already was, you know, because like Leviathan is obviously a big draw. But from what I know about the park is they have a very strong top 2 and then a pretty big drop off with a ton of just okay rides.
They do have a lot of okay rides.
I feel like this might round out like the collection of feeling a bit more like like a little more top heavy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like the big concern with this ride is primarily in the trains because these are going to use, to our knowledge, a similar or identical train setup to what you would typically get on a Skyrocket 2. The big difference is that some have the comfort collars, some do not. We know that this won't have comfort collars, but the Premier trains, if you've experienced one of their newer rides, as in from the past like 5 to 7 years, they're not great. I've been very vocal about this. I think they're some of the worst trains in the industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're very limiting on like who can actually get into them, and even as someone who's like, you know, we're pretty average sized people, they're tough to get into.
Yeah, and we have a lot of friends that are taller individuals that are just like wildly uncomfortable during Premier ride experiences because they are just so tight. Getting in and out is a huge pain, and then these like shin restraints and just everything feels just so tight. Like
absolutely.
I sometimes joke that I don't feel like they were designed to accommodate like human beings. Like, the reason why we say that there is a chance that they might not be identical is because if you look very closely, if you look at the way that the seat bodies are like designed, it looks like they might be a little wider.
Yeah.
The side paneling is gone, so it might be a bit more open feeling. It almost reminds me of the Gerstlauer trains on Iron Rattler, like how open those are on the sides. But it's still the same where you have 6 passengers per car, and it does still look a little tight.
Yeah, I hope that is the case and that it does make at least somewhat of a difference. I don't think it's going to be a huge difference. I think they need to scrap the trains and start over. It's crazy because so many major manufacturing companies have designed and redesigned their trains several times in the time frame that they've had this one crappy train setup that nobody likes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if all these other companies can do it, I feel like they can do it. Because right now I have such a mixed view on Premier because there are several of their coasters that I really enjoy. A lot of them are with like the older train setup. They're like, I love Flight of Fear.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze is incredible.
Mr. Freeze, absolutely love it. And a lot of their coasters I like, but I can't stand the trains and it kind of takes away. Like West Coast Racers would be one of my favorite coasters in the state of California if I wasn't whacking my head on the comfort collars. Or like once they took the comfort collars off of Icebreaker, it made all the difference.
A lot better, yeah.
But still, even with that change, it's like kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like embarrassing, like trying to squeeze in.
It's awkward. It's
awkward and like, you know, if you like I have big thighs, for example, and like I'm not like a string bean, so getting in, like, I almost feel like I'm on display because I'm like, have to contort myself and everything.
No one looks attractive getting in Premier trains.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, oh, I gotta get in this now, and I really want to see that change in the future because I don't want to be like feeling some sort of way, like getting on.
I will say also from an operational perspective, I am mildly concerned about the capacity of this because it is a long ride and they only have 2 trains, 18 passengers per vehicle. Canada's Wonderland gets slammed. That is a busy, busy park. I think this thing is going to get massive lines.
Well, even saying that, like, are there any block zones on this?
They
can run multiple trains at the same time?
They could, because technically the main launch section could act as an additional block where, you know, it could bring the train to a halt if it needed to. So I feel like in theory, there is a way that they could run this with 3 trains. I think it would just purely depend on how the brake run is set up. If there's an extra block there that it could have as a holding. Cedar Fair likes to have their dual restraint set up when it comes to big roller coasters. And so I fully expect this to have a seatbelt along with it. And, you know, then you typically have to do the seatbelt first, lap bar second. And I know I've talked to some ride operators from Icebreaker, and they said that actually operations, for the most part, were faster with the comfort collars because it was easier to check than the seat belt, which is right up against the lap bar.
Correct.
So just something to think about. I would say if you're going to Canada's Wonderland next year, you'll probably want to go here first thing. Like, it's gonna get a long line. So to just wrap things up, this is a really exciting ride for Canada's Wonderland. Their last big roller coaster was Yukon Striker in 2019, so it will have been 6 years by the time this opens. I think this is going to be really well received. It's very different from every other ride in that park, and probably very different from a lot of the other roller coasters that locals would have experienced. So I expect this to be a slam dunk for sure.
I'm also very impressed at how well they kept this under wraps.
Yes.
Because, you know, the King's Dominion wing coaster was leaked so long ago. And,
Yeah.
like, somehow they managed to keep this pretty quiet. Like, the most that anyone had really heard is, like, that it might be premiere.
Right.
And that was really it. But, like, when I heard that, like, I was really surprised.
I was too. I fully anticipated them to go with, like, Intamin
I thought it was gonna be
or
Intamin.
Mach, even Vekoma
Yep.
for something like this. And so Premiere definitely came out of left field for sure. But, like, this is...
Good for them, though. Like,
This is a big ride for them. So, like, it is exciting, and I hope that there are train modifications to this, because I feel like this is the perfect roller coaster to do a slight, like, rebranding.
like a reintroduction.
Yeah, like, show them what you can do and what you're capable of. So, that's why I like to remain optimistic. I hope that it's not super constricting or uncomfortable for riders.
Yes. And I think that even that aside, because, you know, we still ride them anyway, even if they are a little on the uncomfortable side, this looks like it'll be one of their best layouts.
Yeah.
For sure.
I agree. So let us know down in the comments below what you think of AlpenFury coming to Canada's Wonderland in 2025. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.